Good evening. It's a national holiday here in South Korea, the anniversary of the March 1st independence movement. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Ji-young. Let's begin with our top story. President Yoon Suk-yeol marked the 104th anniversary of Korea's March 1st, or 3일 independence movement against Japan's colonization before and during the Second World War. He emphasized the importance of looking to the future and strengthening bilateral ties between the neighbors based on their common values. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young has more.
South Korea now sees Japan as a cooperative partner for future prosperity, rather than a militant oppressor of the past. President Yoon Suk-yeol made a landmark speech on Wednesday, showing Seoul's strong will to overcome long-standing differences with Tokyo. He said the two must now work together on mutual interests in pursuing global security and economic prosperity.
3.1 운동 이후 한 세기가 지난 지금 일본은 과거 군국주의 침략자에서 우리와 보편적 가치를 공유하고 안보와 경제 그리고 글로벌 아젠다에서 협력하는 파트너가 되었습니다.
Yoon's remarks came at a ceremony that marked the 104th anniversary of Korea's March 1st or 3일 independence movement, a series of protests triggered in 1919 against Japan's oppressive colonial rule of the country. Reflecting upon the need to remember the sacrifices made in the past for the sovereignty of the country, Yoon stressed that South Korea must now prepare for the ever-changing global trends and complexities. In this regard, he said bolstering trilateral ties with the United States and Japan is essential.
복합 위기와 심각한 북핵 위협 등 안보 위기를 극복하기 위한 한미일 3자 협력이 그 어느 때보다 중요해졌습니다.
This comes amid Seoul and Tokyo's recent move towards security cooperation against North Korea's growing missile provocations through measures such as joint military drills and intel sharing with Washington. The two neighbors also held a trilateral dialogue with the US on economic security on Monday, a significant step towards overcoming their bilateral spat that began in 2019 over historical disputes. Reflecting on the spirit of solidarity and cooperation that sparked the March 1st movement, Yoon said South Korea must now contribute to promoting freedom and common prosperity for all global citizens. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
March 1st is a day that carries special meaning for Koreans in remembrance of the Independence Day movement against Japanese rule back in 1919. A host of ceremonies take place across the country to honor those who sacrificed their lives and fought for Korea's freedom. With the removal of social distancing measures, people are taking to the streets once more to take part in the ceremonies and celebrations. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
104 years ago, thousands of students and leaders alike were massacred by the Japanese police force and army as they gathered in the streets of Seoul in solidarity against the annexation of the Korean peninsula by Japan. Every year on March 1st, South Korea hangs the national flag from buildings and on the streets in remembrance. And this year, people can once more see Korean flags filling the streets outside Hyochang Park in Seoul, commonly dubbed Park of Heroes. One of the independence activists laid to rest in the park is Kim Gu, the head of the provisional government of the Republic of Korea, first established on April 11, 1919. The independence movement of March 1st provided a catalyst for its establishment, and the National Memorial of the Korean Provisional Government in its exhibitions shows how it was done and the key figures behind it. More than 200 copies of the Declaration of Independence were drawn up in 1919, but on display here are the four main copies. The first was announced in Tokyo on February 8th, and the second was read aloud at the start of the March 1st independence movement by 33 representatives. The third was issued in Jilin, China, and the fourth is the Provisional Government Declaration. According to the director of the Memorial Center, South Korea's quest for independence through the press went beyond Asia to all four corners of the world.
I hope that people will be able to understand that the independence movement didn't just happen within the country. It happened in every place where Koreans were in the world.
visitors to the exhibition can learn more about the provisional government and leave behind their own traces in history by colouring in a wall mural. With the fight for independence against foreign oppression happening around the world even today, March 1st and what it stands for is still of great significance. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to log trade deficit, with February being the 12th straight month as imports outweigh exports. This comes following weak demand for the country's key export items, semiconductors, as well as a rise in energy imports. 신세벽 reports.
Yet another grim economic figure coming out of South Korea's trade sector. Data from the Trade Ministry on Wednesday shows that South Korea posted a trade deficit for 12 months straight in February. That is the longest streak since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. It's mainly due to the country's falling exports, which fell for the 5th consecutive month in February. Outbound shipments fell 7.5% on year to just over $50 billion last month. The ministry attributed this to weak global demand for chips amid an economic slowdown. In fact, exports of semiconductors, the country's key export item, plunged over 42% last month on falling demand and a drop in chip prices. It also marks a 7th straight month of falling chip exports. Imports, meanwhile, rose 3.6% on year to $55.4 billion in February on growing energy imports. The country's energy imports surged almost 20% on year last month amid the cold weather. South Korea relies heavily on imports for its energy needs. Taking into account decreasing exports and increasing imports, South Korea logged a trade deficit of $5.3 billion last month. The Trade Ministry last month forecast a 4.5% decline in exports this year. Despite such a depressing projection, the South Korean government has set an export target of $685 billion for this year, up 0.2% from last year's total. This came as President Yoon Suk-yeol called on all ministries to focus on promoting exports and winning overseas contracts in 12 key sectors, including nuclear power, arms, overseas construction, and agriculture. 신세벽, Arirang News.
That's all from us on Korea's March 1st Independence Movement Day. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with all the latest news. Have a lovely rest of the holiday.